Would you like to come forward? Please.
Good evening, everybody. Mr. Mayor, councillors, thank you for allowing me to address you today. Excuse me. My name is Michelle Alston, and I'm a resident and homeowner in Westview. In addition, I also serve as a union representative at my place of work. As a healthcare professional, I am acutely aware of the broader community challenges facing Powell River. Firstly, I am concerned with the proposal to use Dwight Hall as an emergency warming center. This location appears to have been put forward by city staff and council as a viable option without thorough consideration. It remains important to honor both longstanding citizens and businesses, and this approach may counter-effect those efforts. It is widely recognized that LIFT and BC Housing have faced challenges in effectively managing housing for individuals who are homeless or affected by substance abuse. And there is risk in repurposing another building, particularly one of heritage significance. Additionally, given that LIFT identified the need for new space last March, their approach has placed undue urgency on the city to provide property at short notice. Secondly, I wish to raise considerations regarding the proposed alternative location at the former fire hall in Wildwood. While this site may be more appropriate, both council and the community have raised concerns. Specifically, I would appreciate clarification from Councillor Doubt regarding his reservations about this option. Given Councillor Doubt's proximity to the fire hall and information suggesting that his daughter-in-law is employed by LIFT and OPS, this situation constitutes a potential conflict of interest. Accordingly, I respectfully recommend that Councillor Doubt recuse himself from the deliberations in this motion, in line with guidelines set out in the Community Charter, Part 4, Division 6. Lastly, I would like to clarify that I do not oppose initiatives to provide amenities for those experiencing homelessness. My primary concern pertains to ensuring accountability and transparency regarding the allocation of taxpayer property and sufficient management of same. Thank you for considering these points.
Thank you very much. Anybody else wish to come forward?
Sure. Lorenzo Legge from South Townside. I realize that there might not be a question period about this, so I'll try to put my questions in the form of a statement. And one of the first things that we were wondering was QP Local 978 or 798 consulted. They do rent space in the Dwight Hall, the Masonic Lodge 81. Wondering if they're consulted. The Rod May Hotel, the Old Mill Beer and Wine, which would be a special consideration due to selling liquor. And Councillor Southcott, were you in any email correspondence regarding other housing applications and providers? Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else wish to come forward and make a comment? Great.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Diana Collicutt. I am a 30-year resident of the townsite. I'm the president of the Townsite Ratepayers Society. I'm a past director of the Townsite Heritage Society, and I'm a previous city employee that did facility booking for Dwight Hall. So lots of opportunity and experience to be in Dwight Hall and see how it's run and managed. Council, are you aware that there's strict policies about the tenants in the building? There's no smoking allowed. Okay? In the building, there's no candles allowed. There's no illegal drugs allowed. There's no vandalism allowed, and there's no loitering allowed. There's strict policies. So council, will there be these activities happening in the building with an emergency weather shelter? The risk level is very high, very, very high. This is a 100-year-old building that has been built by the hands of this community with more than just plaster and wood, okay? This is heart and soul that's gone into this building. It is the heart and soul of our community, okay? Having said that, anybody who's opposed to Dwight Hall being used is not somebody that doesn't care about the people that are living in the woods, okay? And it's really unfair what's going on social media, the positions that people are taking saying that we don't care. That's not true. We do care. We do care. But we also really, really care about this building. Okay? There's fires in the forest in the summertime. The encampments, there's fires. What is going to happen? These folks are wayward folks. They need a place to stay. Yes, they need to be warm. They smoke. They have matches. And it's LIST's responsibility. This is not the people that are opposed to Dwight Hall. It's not our responsibility. LIFT has had 2 years to work on this. They have a building down there that they've owned for a long time, and it's a vacant site at the lower level. Why did they not plan for this and have that as a location? And I know I've run out of time. I have lots more info or questions, but I really would like council to think about those things tonight. And Councillor Southcott, you said last night or on Tuesday night that you do not support Dwight Hall. Okay, so
Thank you very much.
That
Thank
you.
you.
Stick
Thank
to
you.
that.
Just want to confirm with our corporate officer, has the item 13 been moved up?
Your worship, I think some people are not knowing where we're at.
Oh, I'm sorry. but
That's okay.
We've had 3, so you're not able to speak tonight.
Really?
Really. We have a long agenda and we have some important issues.
Okay, can I just make a comment about one of your staff from yesterday, though?
No. Okay. Okay. Our corporate officer do the consent agenda and then 13.1.
Sorry, Mayor, can you please repeat the question?
Well, should we do the consent agenda and after that do item 13.1?
Yes, that's correct. 13.1 follows 9.
Okay, thank you. So we'll move to the consent agenda. Do we have a motion to adopt the consent?
I would move the consent agenda.
Second by Councillor Southcott. All in favor? Passed unanimously. So, but we'll now move to item 13.1, which is the extreme weather response shelter. And we've done that because we expect a significant number of the people in the audience here are here for this item. And rather than having you have to sit through a long meeting, we're going to deal with that now. So. Can we put it on? So, Councillor Elliott.
I believe that we were going to forward an amended motion than the one in the package. And I would like to move the amended motion. And maybe we should put it up rather than, because there's a lot of people here.
Correct. Just going to put it up so everybody can read.
And the amendments are to do with staff advice about the process and timing as to how it works.
It's up, Councillor Elliott. Will you read it?
I move that city staff advise the provincial government, BC Housing, and, oh, wait, we're going to wait for it to finish being revised.
We will definitely try to speak so everybody can hear us.
Is that the amendment done? Okay. I move that upon provision of applicable legal notice, city staff advise the provincial government, BC Housing, and community partners that Dwight Hall is not available as an extreme weather response facility, and that city staff pursue the use of the Wildwood Fire Hall as the extreme weather response facility as soon as possible.
We have a seconder. Councillor Southcott seconded. Any discussion? Councillor Elliott, and then Doubt, and then Palm, and then Southcott.
Thank you, Your Worship. I was going to start with, we had a number of questions outstanding that we asked on Tuesday, and so I was hoping staff could update us on the information from Tuesday to today.
Through the chair to Councillor Elliott. So I will advise on some answers, and if I don't get them all, hopefully you will remember what you asked. But there was some questions about insurance and whether or not our buildings were insured to accommodate an extreme weather response shelter. And so the city staff did confirm with our insurer, the Municipal Insurance Association of BC, that our facilities could host warming shelters and extreme weather response shelters. It doesn't affect our insurability. And this was advised that there's a difference often in the private sector, and so maybe this is where some of those concerns came in, but where the use of a facility can impact insurability, but there's no issue for the city, and that's because MIABC expects that cities like ours do offer this type of service in other situations. So this is, again, a Municipal Insurance Association of BC that many municipalities belong to, and so it has a insurance that serves these types of activities regularly.
Okay, Councillor Doubt.
He's finished.
Yeah, and so the other piece of information that I wanted to share, and I did actually share it with members of council via email yesterday. This was an email from the Executive Director of LIFT Community Services. So one of the asks of staff was to reach out to LIFT and talk about the facility in Wildwood. And the response we got back was that the Wildwood Fire Hall is not an appropriate location for an extreme weather response shelter, and LIFT would be unable to operationalize at this site for a multitude of reasons, including but not limited to accessibility and safety barriers, including 2 flights of stairs for entry and egress. The site is situated within a residential area and in close proximity to neighbors. A lack of guest confidentiality due to high visibility of the location, and the interior layout prohibits continuous visibility of guests, which adds additional risk to participant and staff safety.
Thank you. Councillor Doubt.
One more question.
Why?
The question about whether timing for the application to BC Housing would be impacted at all was not, well, I got the answer in an email, but I wanted to.
Sure, so sorry about that. And sorry for those that can't hear, I'll try and hold the microphone very close. When I asked the question about whether or not a change of application would take more time, was it a requirement of a new application? The response was they require a change of address, not a resubmission for approval. So the anticipation is that it could be actually achieved quite quickly. It wouldn't be a resubmission with a development of a new emergency weather response plan.
Is there a transferability of the existing license of occupation, or would we need to renegotiate another license of occupation, and is that a timing factor?
Again, I will do my best to talk as closely to the mic as I possibly can. So your question is whether or not a new license of occupation would have to be developed. I think there's 2 options. There's one to amend the license of occupation. There's another option to establish a new one, and from staff's perspective, there might make sense to establish a new one rather than utilize the existing one.
And would there be a timing factor for that, provided I know that the current provider is not interested in that option, but I just was trying to get to the bottom of the timing question and whether it took extra time.
Again, dependent on council's direction this evening, staff would prioritize this and aim to move quite quickly.
Thank you so much for all of those answers.
Okay, just want to acknowledge that Councillor Isaacson is also in the list of asking questions. So Councillor Doubt.
My question is actually already answered by the CAO. I know that the city received a letter from LIFT, or had consulted with LIFT about the fire hall and the length of time it would take to change your application to cover different buildings. I wanted to make sure everybody knew what information we had about that. That was my question, and I'll save my other comments for later when we get to talking about the motion.
Councillor Isaacson.
My questions were answered. Thank you.
Councillor Southcott.
Thank you, Worship. Before Christmas, during discussions that we had about this issue, there was some conversation that rotated around the possibility of like a tent, a big tent, that the information that I have is that our regional emergency program has a large tent, the kind that could have some kind of a heater inside it, and it could be located, like it could be set up like it would be if we had an earthquake or something like that. I'm just wondering if staff has investigated that possibility or if that really got into the process.
Through the chair to Councillor Southcott. So staff didn't investigate the idea of using a tent. We were, again, working with community partners. I guess my question would be whether BC Housing would fund the use of a tent, meaning would Lift in that part play the role of the community partner? And if not, would council be looking to direct staff to take on that role is really the question that I would have.
So if I may, my question would extend to the feasibility of it, and would Lift be able to utilize a facility like that? It would be, I know of some of the facilities that we have had here over the years, and the conversation got started before Christmas, but I wasn't aware of the progress of it either, but I was given the impression that something that the emergency program does have, and I'm not talking about the NEST system, Doug, could very possibly be suitable for a purpose like this, being an extreme weather response, obviously an emergency type of situation. So could that be pursued?
Through the chair again to Councillor Southcott. If that is the direction of council tonight, then of course staff could work with Lift, and I can take this away and engage Lift again to see if a structure of that nature is something that could be supported under the extreme weather response program.
Appropriate to move that now?
There's already a motion on the table.
Okay, yeah, we've already moved that.
We'll wait. So just Councillor Palm and then Councillor Elliott.
Dixon on the list?
She said that she did not put an answer already.
Okay, thank you, Worship. Appreciate it. And through the chair, I will say just a couple things. There's a large crowd here tonight. For those of you that weren't here on...
Councillor Palm, could you speak closer to the mic?
I better try, louder and closer. So there was a large crowd here on Tuesday, similar size to what we have tonight, maybe even larger. And the turnout tonight, there's a bunch of new faces here. So I'm just going to reiterate a couple things and clarify a couple things. As I said on Tuesday, people are pointing fingers at councillors, people are pointing fingers at staff. Well, that should not be the case, because prior to when we discussed it at Christmas, staff made it very clear that none of our buildings were suitable to house such at that time. And because of our compassion in these chairs, we unanimously passed a motion that was very broad and gave staff the wherewithal to go out and find something. Well, they met with Lift. The two options that we're discussing tonight, Dwight Hall and the Wildwood Fire Hall, were both looked over by staff, Lift, and company. That's how we've ended up at this, with a recommendation, Lift saying Dwight Hall, best option. Well, now here we are. We're in a crackerjack. We didn't listen to staff, and we have to deal with this. So I can't imagine how much time has been spent on the massive amount of emails and phone calls and correspondence that have been going on over this single issue, because it's massive. And it's 10-1 opposed to Dwight. Without any doubt in my mind, probably greater than that. Because when you look at that building, and I want to thank Mr. Galinsky, who put an article in the Peak following Tuesday's deliberations of that beautiful front of that entrance of that building. What an historic monument. And one email I got, Mr. Robson, the guy that called the Canuck games for years, came to Powell River to support the Kings. He came here primarily to look at that beautiful building. That's what the email I received stated. That's how valued that piece of property and building is. The other aspect of it is the Legion is not entitled to make political comment. But one of their members sent me an email which I'm going to read. He states, I am writing as a Canadian Armed Forces veteran and long-standing Legion member. I am very concerned with the proposed warming shelter used at the historic Dwight Hall. My concerns are mostly centered around the cenotaph located on the grounds of the Dwight Hall, and possibly and probably desecration and destruction of this memorial to our fallen soldiers, sailors, and airmen and women that have served with honor to our country. I am sure there are other facilities, such as the old fire hall in Wildwood, that would not affect the cenotaph memorial. I ask Council, please consider using this historic building and grounds. And he also made a note that his comments have to remain neutral. So I really value the input from our veterans that put on a tremendous ceremony every year on November 11th. Now, I am the individual on Tuesday that is responsible for adding the fire hall to this motion because it was not there originally. And I want to just state where I am on that so that everybody's well aware on how I view this whole situation that we're in. So I received an email from an ex-student, a young man today that lives in Wildwood. And he goes on and he's outlined many of the points that were previously outlined tonight by Lift, why it's not suitable. And he doesn't want to see this in his neighborhood, affecting a residential area, close to a school, blah, blah, blah. Say, you know, you're going to hear 100 times. So I wrote back to him because this was the length of his message to me. He spent a lot of time putting that together, and I was obliged to let him know where I stand. So I'm going to read my response. I said, thank you for expressing your concerns. I would hope more people from Wildwood would also speak up. I am opposed to the city taking this issue and costing our taxpayers more with more disruption to our great community. This is an issue created by the province, locally by BC Housing and the operator that is not getting the job done to the satisfaction of our community. The city has been put in a terrible situation as a result. Neither of the options in the city that the city is discussing here tonight are being expressed as acceptable by our citizens, and I hear you and them loud and clear. I will be stating an option for Lyft and BC Housing tonight to consider. Let me be clear as I conclude my correspondence to this gentleman. This is not the city's problem. This is the province and their chosen operators' problem to solve. Staff has told us in December that no city buildings fit the criteria they are advocating for. I will do my best tonight to represent the will of our citizens, which, as a councillor, I was elected to do. It is stated such in our community charter from the province of British Columbia.
Thank you, Councillor Palm. Councillor Elliott, do you have a follow-up question?
Thank you, Your Worship. Speaking to the motion, I realized we were in question period before. This will be my first time to speak to the motion. And I also wanted to address some of Councillor Southcott's questions. I'll start there. Councillor Southcott, when I have talked to BC Housing about what their program for these shelters, they have indicated that they have no programs to fund outdoor shelters at all. And so we're looking at different community partners and different processes than what we have at this point in time. To be a designated shelter that is funded by BC Housing, there's a process, and those outdoor facilities do not meet the criteria for that process. And so that was also something we were talking last summer about, and a number of other ideas around designating parking lots and spaces, and all of those things fall outside of anything the province is willing to fund. The triggering of resources that are for our emergency response require some kind of a natural disaster and a declaration of, I knew you knew that, but I'm just, so the facilities that, I suppose we could ask our mayor to declare a natural disaster in our community. I don't think the criteria meets and the province would come back and say no, and so we wouldn't be able to fund it that way. So those are my comments on your questions. They haven't been open to us as an option for council as far as I know. And the answers have always come no, that's not part of this program.
Good.
Speaking to the motion, we have before us a decision to say no to Dwight Hall, which means no to an emergency shelter at this point. The option of the fire hall isn't going to work because the partner says they can't do it there, and so it's not something they're prepared to open because they can't make it safe for accessibility and not being able to have eyes on all areas at once with the amount of staff that they get funded for that thing. The funding that goes with this emergency shelter is limited to a certain amount of people for the function, and then they have to be able to use those ones that they're funded to run the operation. And if they're using more, then it's an unfunded part of it. And they're not able to sustain their organization if they continue to do things that are unfunded. And as a person involved in the board of a nonprofit, it is extremely difficult to run things that you can't find funding for.
Great.
So
Sorry,
excuse me.
Just going to ask, there seems to be a little mumbling in the background. We could maintain quiet, and once we're finished, we'll vote on this motion.
Yeah, so the question before us today is whether we don't provide city space for warming people who are out in the cold, or whether we provide a very undesirable space to warm people out in the cold. That is what's before council today. Is do we give what we have, which it apparently is boiled down to this space that is that we are all so passionate about, or do we just say no to the whole thing?
Thank you.
So that's already been looked at, and it isn't possible.
Councillor Doubt.
I'm sorry, I had one more thing to say, Your Worship. I was
Okay.
interrupted.
Again, just be courteous, right? You'll get your chance at the end of the meeting if you have. Okay. Councillor, continue.
Thank you. I have a huge heart and spend time taking care of veterans myself. I know my veteran friends know this. I asked one of my veteran friends today because I'm truly torn about what to do in this situation. And he indicated he didn't do 3 tours overseas to watch people freeze to death. He thinks it's a horrible idea, but the alternative to him was equally horrible. And he would give up his monument in order to prevent people from dying, because that's what he went there to fight for. And so I don't think the unanimous decision among veterans is that this is sacred above human life, because I think that some of them would speak against that. And if not Many of them. So there's people on all sides of this question, and the idea that if we can do something to prevent someone from freezing, should we do it? Or should we blame it on the province or blame it on someone else? And that's what we're dealt with. We're trying to figure out what to vote about today. I have an idea that we may have the ability here in council to direct staff and RCMP to increase security on our own property if we say so. So that's a question I have.
Okay, okay. All right. Councillor Doubt.
Oh,
Okay, just a
if the
second.
crowd would excuse me.
Councillor Doubt. Just
All
give me a,
of the people.
Councillor Doubt. I want to make it clear. Okay, everybody's listening here. That if there's any more of this, I will clear everybody here. Okay? And we'll continue to do our business. So if you decide you can't respect that, leave now, and the others who can respect it can stay. Councillor Doubt.
So I'm going to try to give you a full explanation of the reason why I'm opposed to passing this motion. I'm going to start out with a couple of communications I got today. One of the first ones I got earlier this morning was from a person who was here on Tuesday night and was writing to apologize for not being able to get themselves up to the microphone to bring forward an alternative point of view because of the noise, the yelling, the interruptions, and the signs and the harassment, basically, is what that I saw happening of people who had a different opinion. They didn't come. And I responded back and I said, I understand why when there's this many people in the room that all seem to have or think they have only one opinion that counts, to get up and actually explain a position. That's why there was only one contrary point of view from members of the public. It was from a respected member of the community. At least I respect our ex-CAO, who actually was dealing with warming shelters last year in the United Church across the street. So I understand. And the point of that is that there is not just one point of view in this community. There is more than one. I've received many emails that were in favor of the Dwight Hall, and not because it's the perfect choice, because it's the only choice that exists. But there are lots of people out there, believe it or not, who agree that the Dwight Hall is an appropriate place. I'm going to read one of the letters because I thought it was particularly well written. It came to me at 2:40 today. And it says, I am writing about the issue for a vote tonight about Dwight Hall and the emergency weather response shelter. As a resident of Townsite, I am in support of the shelter being housed in this neighborhood in a building that is historically a community center. This has been a hard issue for our community and revealed a lot of unfortunate opinions and stigma around people who are unhoused. The least we can do is provide a bed and warmth for people who are struggling in these uncertain times. I'm a mother of 3 young children, and I understand that this could even change our neighborhood. Change should not deter our community from taking care of those people who need our support. Furthermore, I am disappointed in the violence and misinformation that is flying around our community about this issue. I think it is a terrible showing for a community that has historically been known to take care of its own. We are a small town with a big love for each other and a full of wonderful, hearty people, and I hope that we can, at the very least, provide people with a warm place to sleep. Please do not allow a few loud, angry voices to deter you from doing the right thing for those in the community who need it. It's not an individual letter. It's not the only one I received along those same lines, but it is one. So
Finished?
I just want to finish what I had to say.
All right,
Mr. Mayor.
finish.
That's okay. I don't think I've reached my time limit yet.
I will check. Has the
Well,
time limit been met?
We've got 15 minutes.
Bylaw says 15 minutes.
All right.
I'll try to keep within that. I'll do the best I can. So the reason I'm opposed to this is, has been pointed out, I think, by the CAO and by Councillor Elliott at least, is that if we don't accept the Dwight Hall, which is, I think, where we should accept it and what council already voted to do, there's going to have to be some scrambling around to try to find an alternative. I agree that the a temporary solution, and BC Housing is not going to support that. So if we pass this motion, my concern is that we will not end up with a cold weather emergency shelter this year, and that people will be suffering in the cold. I think the weather report is that over the next couple of weeks, there will probably be a change from our beautiful, balmy, sunny weather that we're having right now to something that's much colder than what it is now, and people will be out in the cold. I was willing to consider the Wildwood Fire Hall as a choice, but we got Lyft that went and looked at it, and they said they don't think they can operate the facility in there. So without having an operator for the facility, there is no point in having a facility. Lyft says they can't do it, and there we go. If we don't go to the Dwight Hall and we try some other facility, which we're going to have to spend some time searching for, the earliest it would possibly come back to council would be the middle of February. And that would be if we had the time to get the applications into the provincial government and everybody and get it going. But I think we should defeat this motion. We should go with what council had already determined to do and use the Dwight Hall. Again, I'll reiterate, not the perfect solution. It would be nice if there was another place, but there isn't. The fact is we've looked, we've tried to get it. Lyft has tried to get a place to do it, and this is what's available. And I agree with Councillor Elliott's suggestion. If people think there's no more policing and more security to do, we could pass a motion at council to have bylaw officers or the RCMP instructed to increase security around there. And as I would like to have an opportunity to finish. It would be nice if you listened, because that would give you a better opportunity to reply to what I actually say. So, as I was saying, it would be possible to get the coverage for security there, and I'll just leave it at that for now. And I'm opposed to the motion. I think we should get moving and provide what we can at the Dwight Hall.
All right. I'm fully supportive of this motion. I think it is the only logical step forward. And the responsibility lies with the provincial government and whoever they choose to operate a facility. And I have heard reasons why the Wildwood Fire Hall apparently cannot be utilized. From multiple experiences of running companies looking for solutions, I don't buy it. If the province decides that it's important to have an extreme weather facility, they can make it happen. And they can make it happen in 3 days. And Lyft can hire the right people. We have a city which has incredible resources. Just look at the number of people that worked at the mill. You name it, they can do it. So to me, not passing this motion is simply avoiding the responsibility that we should put back on the province. And I guarantee you, if we do this, they will make it happen. Councillor Southcott.
Thank you, Worship. I've had 2 days to think about this since Tuesday. Is this the question that I confronted myself this morning? Is this motion consistent with my values, or the values I believe are held by our community? Values, not the specific circumstance we're talking about. And there's only one answer I have for that question, and that is no. So if we pass this motion, we will ensure more delay and more failure. Do I want to see Dwight Hall used as a shelter? Absolutely not. In that respect, my feelings are consistent with what I said on Tuesday. There's been 1 year of searching and failure for LIFT and our community to find a space. We find ourselves here in the city at the end of the road, the end of the line. Leadership, in my belief, has a moral responsibility for our whole community. We do care. I saw signs on Tuesday, yes to an EWS shelter, no to Dwight Hall. So I saw the yes. Find something better. Yeah. Is this the best our city can do? Wildwood Fire Hall apparently won't work. I'm not inclined to disagree with the mayor. I absolutely think there are other options here. Who have we heard from? I look around this room and I don't see anybody I think that's even close to being homeless, let alone homeless. There's nobody here who's homeless, is there? If you're homeless, please let me know right now. No, I don't see that. Okay, thank you. So there's one. My point is that we at this table hear the people in this room, and we've received an awful lot of email from basically this sector of this community. We've heard some, we've got some email and some correspondence from people who are less advantaged. This town has a higher poverty rate. We may not really be happy to know about, but I think a lot of us know that, than the provincial average. We haven't heard much from those people at all because they're too busy surviving right now. And the ones, and I was in this business for a lot of years in the downtown east side and also here. When people are struggling, they're not political. So I'm thinking about the people that I've gone out and talked to over the years and what they have said about issues like this, not this one specifically. So what is Dwight Hall and the Cenotaph to me? Yeah, I went to dances there when I was a teenager, and I went to the music festival, like Patricia said on Tuesday. I was involved in that and all sorts of other things because I did grow up here. My grandfather was what was called a town site carpenter at the time. And in 1927, he started here in 1914. So I'm absolutely sure he was involved in building that building. Both he and my father, who from his teens onward grew up here, were veterans. My dad served overseas. So November 11th was way more important to my dad than Christmas was. And I went to Remembrance Day ceremonies as a kid and then as an adult. And I've never missed one that I could avoid missing. Those men came back with wounds that have taken me most of my adult life to figure out. And that's what veterans face. And I have a bit of an understanding of that because it's the same kind of thing that paramedics face after a decade or so of doing the work. And it's the kind of thing that ends up people homeless and addicted and with mental health challenges. So I've seen that side, and I've also seen the results in my own family. Fortunately, none of my family is homeless, but some of them are. Some of the people who suffer that stuff are, and I get that. And this puts me in an extremely difficult position here. So if Dwight Hall basement is the best we can do, then to be in integrity myself and avoid hypocrisy in my own eyes, I can't support this motion, and I will support the use of Dwight Hall. Although, that being said, I hope this community can come up with something better. Yeah, we failed.
Okay.
So furthermore, I have one other commitment to make if this actually happens. And that is that if Dwight Hall ends up being used, if we can't find anything better than that, I will turn up any night because I have done security and I have been a paramedic for many years and I have a fire extinguisher I can carry around in my backpack. And if that happens, I invite anybody else with any capability to be of service to this community to do the same thing voluntarily. And I don't expect any pay for this. Or maybe we can find something better. Are we at the end of the road? I hope not. That's where I stand at this, in this moment. Thank you. Thank you, Your Worship.
Okay, I just want to make the point that the information I received is LIFT has a facility with an area that could have been used for this, and they haven't. So I think there's a lot of emotional discussion going on here. What everybody appears to not want to accept is that we're not talking about brain surgery. We're not talking about sending a man to the moon, which we did in 1969. We're simply talking about getting a safe shelter in place. And if the province and LIFT want this to happen, it can be done in less than a week. So if there's any, yes, Councillor Doubt.
I'd like to put my name on the list to speak. I'm a second-time speaker, and Councillor Isaacson has had her hand up for a long time.
Councillor Isaacson, you responded that your question had been answered. Would you like to speak?
Yeah, if we're in debate now, I would like the opportunity to speak. So a couple of points. One, to the comments regarding the scale of letters that we've received and for or against. I did actually do some math on Tuesday, leading up to the vote on Tuesday. And so it was about 25% of respondents who supported Dwight Hall and about 3/4 or 80% who didn't. So definitely overwhelming opposition, but not at the scale that Councillor Palm shared. Actually, not 20%, sorry, 25%. So when I read all the letters, what I'm looking for in order to listen to the perspectives of community members are their concerns and their wishes. And so I think some of the yearnings that I'm hearing from people are related to the legacy of Dwight Hall and its heritage nature, super valid concern, the honoring of our veterans and the sanctity of the cenotaph, also a valid concern. Concerns from neighboring businesses and residents about the quality of life in the neighborhood, also a valid concern. And then also the concern about risk to life of not opening emergency weather response shelter. And to be clear, that risk of life is not necessary. I mean, it could be about freezing to death, but it's a couple of other things as well. There have been fires in the forests. So when people are having to cook or warm themselves outside, fires have happened. And so the solution to that is getting people inside so that they don't have to light fires to cook food or to get warm. Also, the risk of carbon monoxide poisoning when people light like propane stoves inside an enclosed space, and even just worsening of other medical symptoms. So if people are suffering from mental health issues or physical ailments and those are compounded by cold weather and lack of quality of life and comfort by not being warm enough overnight. So anyways, those are a lot of the concerns that I've heard loud and clear from people. And so it's my job to weigh those concerns in alignment with my values that I was elected on, what I feel like is in the best interest of the city. And so I fall on, people won't be surprised, I fall on not supporting this motion. And again, similar to Councillor Southcott, I do not believe that Dwight Hall is an excellent choice. But as a city, the only option that we have to participate in this process is to offer space. We can't compel a private business owner or compel a faith community to offer space. that has been tried over the past year and a half without success. And so our only option is to offer our own spaces, of which there are not many suitable, and I would say none totally suitable, but one is suitable enough for the purposes. And so I appreciate there's a lot of people who are offering, what about this space? What about this space? And a lot of those spaces have already been looked into, or the owners of them or operators have said no to. But like this is a spirit that I want to see, people generating ideas and solutions. Unfortunately, we're just too late in the game. This should have opened last night. I volunteered multiple nights last year at the overnight warming center, probably about half the nights. I did jigsaw puzzles with guests. I ate with guests. I worked with other volunteers. I met people who graduated from high school here, people whose dad owned a trades business and who was trying to, follow in his footsteps and had operated construction businesses here, and people with kids and families who are suffering. And so the people that we're looking to house, not every single one of them, but a large proportion of them are from here. And even the ones that if they've moved here from away to make connections to family or try to make a better go of things, also deserve some dignity. So for these reasons, this is like the best, I feel this is the best option that we've got, given the poor options that we have. I would also, I think Councillor Doubt maybe mentioned it earlier, or Councillor Elliott mentioned a motion regarding RCMP or security patrols. I'm completely open to that for the safety of the building, the neighborhood, and also any guests and staff at the shelter. Also keeping in mind that we're looking at something that might be open 5 to 12 nights, perhaps over the next 2 months, not a huge number of nights. So while this isn't our fault, this issue is a collective issue of society at this time, and there's a number of people who are trying to work on solutions. We are where we are, and so what do we do with what we've got? And I feel like we continue on with the direction we gave staff in December. We asked them to activate city space. They have done. I thank them for that, and let's carry on. And that's the end of my comments. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. So we have a motion on the floor. I'm going to call the motion.
I haven't said anything.
You haven't said anything. Would you like to say something?
I'll try to put some thoughts together. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
I think in 3 years sitting in this table, this might be the most the decision that I find the most to be damned if you do, damned if you don't. A real kind of rock and hard place, because there really isn't a good solution. It can be easy to say no to Dwight Hall, and as Councillor Southcott and Isaacson have stated, I said on Tuesday, it's not near the top of my list, and staff and council have been working through different options for several months now. Complex was looked at, and City Hall was looked at, and other buildings were looked at for logistical reasons. They're not feasible options. When you need to have a space that is unused for most of the winter, but needs to store the materials to be used should the situation come about where the weather calls for an extreme response. And as stated, it's happened 6 to 10 times over the last couple of years, and that time is probably coming up any time in the next few weeks. I also wanted to share, there's been a couple things that have been discussed over the last couple weeks that are inaccurate. Busing was mentioned on Tuesday by members of the crowd. Busing is not part of this conversation, whether it's in Townsite or Wildwood. Lyft hasn't asked for a bus. Council has not offered a bus. Transportation to and from wherever this response facility might be is not part of the equation right now. And then there's also been conversation about the fact that our current shelter is being developed right now next to the RCMP facility. Regardless of if that shelter was actually in existence right now, we would still be having this conversation because the extreme weather shelter is a completely separate unit. We have done in the previous years, we have done temporary use permits almost every season for a secondary extreme weather response facility. In the past, LIFT was able to operate it next to the existing shelter, but they're not the same project. They're two separate facilities and set up for separate purposes. So even if our soon-to-be finished temporary shelter was in place already, we would still be having this conversation. And what's been on my mind the last couple nights is that we're unfortunately, or us or the next council, is going to have this conversation in about 10 or 11 months again, because even when that new temporary shelter is complete, winter is going to rear its face again at the end of this year. And the conversation about an extreme weather response facility is going to come up again because our new temporary shelter will not be suited to have enough space for extreme weather purposes. So this is a Band-Aid solution for this season. And I wish it could be a solution that could be provided long-term. And I'm torn because it's either Dwight Hall at this point or probably no facility. I was hoping that some miracle would happen overnight and a commercial partner might open up their space and we wouldn't even need this vote. But unfortunately, that miracle didn't happen. So it leaves us in a tough place. And I fear, if this doesn't go through, then we might go a season without having an emergency response facility at this point.
Okay, we have a motion. Does anybody have a comment which they have not made previously? Councillor Palm and then Elliott.
Yes, Your Worship. I'm just gathering my thoughts now that you've said that, and just make sure that I don't have any overlap. And that is, we are speaking to the motion that is on the screen right now. There are two parts to that motion. Dwight Hall, the crown jewel of our heritage. Wildwood Fire Hall, another option. And as Councillor Southcott pointed out at the beginning of tonight's discussion, search and rescue, a building like that with to provide heat, you could put cots in, could be put in the parking lot of the lift where the lift building sits. That would take care of their immediate problem. We have options. This is not a fait accompli, the use of Dwight Hall. So I don't know why we're talking that way, because if this is passed tonight, LIFT is going to have to look at other options. Let's not lose sight of that. That's what we're voting on. And I just going to, for the sake of it, Councillor Isaacson alluded to numbers. How many people here, raise your hand if you're here to protect Dwight Hall?
Great, thank you, Councillor Palm. Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to mention there seems to be this idea that LIFT has an empty space. They bought that building with a lease in place for that space, and it's a conditional on their sale that lease lasts to the end of a certain time frame. So they do not have access to that space. It was conditional to the sale of that building that the lease. If you don't mind, could you please stop talking in the gallery? So I just wanted people to know they don't actually have an option to use that space.
Thank you.
And it's misinformation to think that they do. They just don't.
Thank you.
And so that's how that is for that space. I also wanted to say that LIFT is not planning to look anymore this winter. Their time is frame is gone. And
okay, good. All right, you have a point.
I was trying, yes, Your Worship.
But that's speculation, okay? Do you have any factual information that you haven't already expressed that you would like to express?
Well, I do think that I'm speaking about facts in this case. However, nobody else has been held to factual information, but I will try. So, excuse me, the floor is mine at the moment.
Okay. All right, let's take a time out. Okay? We're going to meditate for 60 seconds. Then we're going to come back. We're going to listen to what Councillor Elliott said, and then we're going to vote on the motion. So just put the timer on for 60 seconds.
Ryan Tong. Ryan Tong.
There doesn't seem to be much contemplating going on.
Probably be much better. The nest system is dead. It's not intense. It's more.
All right. Let's have quiet. We're going to listen, Councillor Elliott, to continue, and when finished, we're going to have a vote. Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Your Worship. So as I was saying, a lot of the other spaces that people are proposing have been looked into. There has been feasibility looked at just about every single thing I've heard. There is no funding for external outside facilities other than a little bit of outreach. Grassroots communities can do what they can, and we don't have to approve it. The city does not have jurisdiction to approve things outside of what the city can do. If someone comes to us, all we can do is get out of their way, hopefully. But we're not the province. We're not in charge of the programs. The program's either going to happen or it's not. The community itself is collectively responsible to what happens to these individuals when they're out in the cold. We have jurisdiction that we can work within to try and make a difference. And at this point in time, every other option has been explored and thrown out the window. And tonight we're here to decide what we can do to get people out of the cold. And this is the option that has landed before us. And so as much as we may all hate this particular option, the other option is to do nothing. So that's what we're voting for tonight here in council. Do we do nothing or do we do this? And doing nothing,
Okay.
would you please allow me to speak?
Are you making a new point that you haven't made previously? I don't think so. So if you have something that you haven't said before, say it and we'll move on.
I'm emotional too, Your Worship. And it's difficult to say what I'm trying to say when I have quite a few other people talking at the same time. So if you could maintain order, that would be easier for me to get to my point.
Okay, but there's a lot of motion from this table that's making a motive people out there. So let us realize if we skip the emotion and we stick to facts, then there's less likely to get interruption. So continue and then we'll vote.
I guess the point I was trying to make is that I do not see any other options. People think and want to have faith that some other option will come up. I see no evidence of that at all. That's my point.
Thank you. Okay, we have a motion. We have a motion on the table. All in favor? Opposed?
Aye.
The motion is defeated.